Mehmed II, commonly known as Mehmed the Conqueror, a towering figure in both Turkish history and world history in general. Born in 1432, he ascended to the Ottoman throne at the tender age of 19, and swiftly demonstrated his prowess by capturing Constantinople in 1453. This conquest not only established Mehmed as a preeminent leader of his era, but also transformed the Ottoman Empire into a formidable transcontinental power. But beyond his military successes, he was a patron of the arts and an advocate for science and education, fostering a period of cultural flourishing that integrated diverse traditions and knowledge from across the continents. Hello and welcome to the channel. Are you new here? Well, if it's your first time, it's good to meet you. And if you're coming back, well, welcome back to the party. As always, if you like what I do and you want to support the channel, link to the Patreons in description. Or if you want YouTube to get their act together and push the video out to a bigger audience, like, comment and subscribe certainly helps push them in the right direction. Now, without further ado, take a deep breath, make yourself comfortable. We're going to learn all about Mehmed the Conqueror. Mehmed II was born on the 30th of March, 1432, in Edirne, the then capital of the Ottoman state. His father, Sultan Murad II, ruled from 1404 to 1451, and his mother was Huma Hatun, a slave whose origins are admittedly not as well documented. At the age of 11, Mehmed was sent to Amasya with his two lalas, which is a Turkish word for advisor, to govern the region, a customary practice for young Ottoman princes to gain administrative experience out in the field. During this time, he received a rigorous Islamic education under several different teachers, notably his mentor, Molla Gurani. His education deeply ingrained him in Islamic values and the belief in his duty to conquer the city of Constantinople, a mission also heavily influenced by Akşemseddin. Murad II concluded a peace treaty with Hungary on the 12th of June, 1444, and subsequently abdicated to the throne in favor of his young son, Mehmed II, in July or perhaps early August of the same year. However, Mehmed's initial reign was brief. After the Hungarian forces broke the truce by invading Ottoman territory, Mehmed faced a crusade led by the formidable warrior John Hunyadi. Despite appeals for his father to return and lead the army, chroniclers of the 17th century claim that Mehmed II issued a challenge to Murad II, prompting him to return to power. Murad reassumed the throne and defeated the Hungarians at the Battle of Varna on the 10th of November, 1444. Although historians like Halil İnalcık argue that Sandarlil Halil Pasha, who was the one who has persuaded Murad II not to come back, rather than Mehmed II's appeals. Now, Mehmed II then governed Manisa from 1446 until his father Murad II's death in 1451, retaining the title of Sultan. Now, Upon becoming Sultan again, Mehmed quickly dealt with the threats from Ibrahim II of Karaman, and of course the swaths of internal revolts he was facing, alongside threats from the Byzantines to the north, who considered supporting an Ottoman claimant, Orhan, against him. He reascended to the Ottoman throne in 1451 and focused intensely on strengthening the Ottoman navy and preparing for an assault on Constantinople. He enhanced his navy control by completing the construction of the Rumeli Hisari fortress on the European side of the Bosphorus, complementing the existing Anadolu Hisari fortress built by his great-grandfather Bayezid I on the Asian side. This strategic positioning allowed him to exert full control over the strait, and he certainly did just that, in the way of imposing tolls on passing ships. Certainly not a bad way to make money in peacetime. There was a Venetian ship that failed to stop. That was until it was destroyed with a single cannon shot, resulting in the beheading of all survivors, except for the captain, who was impaled as a gruesome warning to others. Certainly the Ottomans showing their kindness towards prisoners of war. While doing his campaign, Mehmed's spiritual guide, Aksham Sadin, yes, the one aforementioned, discovered the tomb of Abu Ayyub al-Ansari, a companion of Muhammad who died during an earlier siege of Constantinople. Mehmed constructed the Ayub Sultan Mosque at this site to signify the conquest's religious significance and his role as a Ghazi. Now, jumping forward a little bit, to perhaps the most pivotal year in not just Ottoman history, but European history, Christian history, perhaps even world history, very arguable. But we jump to 1453, when Mehmed initiated the siege of Constantinople, with an army estimated between 80 to 200,000 soldiers, equipped with over 70 large artillery pieces, and a navy comprising of 320 vessels, primarily transports and supply ships. The naval blockade was arranged from shore to shore at the entrance of the Bosphorus, in a crescent formation to cut off any aid to the city by sea. Mehmed's forces surrounded the city both by land and water routes, with the siege beginning in early April. Despite the formidable defenses of the city, being the Theodosian walls, including the boom chain blocking the Golden Horn and protected by warships, Mehmed's innovative strategy on April the 22nd involved simply taking the ships out of the water and transforming them over land on a series of lubricated logs, bypassing the chain and stretching the city's defenses thinner, scaring the living daylights out of the people of Constantinople watching all of this happen from the walls. Well, the siege culminated on the 29th of May, 1453, with the fall of Constantinople after a grueling 57 days. Now, just speaking about this for the last couple minutes does not pay it justice, and I made a full video on the siege of Constantinople a few days ago. Yes, spoiler alert, our side lost. Well, depending on who's listening. But if you want to know the gory details, and when I say the gory details I certainly mean it, then go and have a look in my medieval history playlist. You'll find the video on the fall of Constantinople. Now, let's continue back to Mehmed. Mehmed moved the Ottoman capital from Adrianople to Constantinople, marking a significant shift in the empire's focus. Upon entering the conquered city, Mehmed allegedly quoted the Persian poet Sa'di, reflecting on the transient nature of empires. And of course, ever since, the city of Constantinople is now known as Istanbul. Go to Turkey, you'll see it. It's been 570 years. Now, following this victory, Mehmed declared himself Caesar of the Roman Empire, a title based on his control over Constantinople, traditionally considered the heart of the Roman Empire since 330 AD. Of course, Rome at the time was too busy being sacked by Visigoths and Vandals and all manner of barbarians, so the capital was generally a little bit safer away from all of that. Well, you see, this claim, while unrecognized by the Catholic Church and pretty much all Western entities, found some acknowledgement within the Eastern Orthodox Church. Mehmed solidified this by appointing Gennadius Scholarius, a critic of the West, as the ecumenical patriarch of Constantinople, who in return recognized Mehmed's rule, granting him a semblance of religious legitimacy. Now, Constantine XI, the last Byzantine emperor, died during the siege, and he left no heirs. Mehmed took these surviving princes of the Byzantine royal family into his service, renaming them and integrating them into the Ottoman administrative and military hierarchy, thereby absorbing the remnants of the Byzantine authority. Mehmed's conquests continued, however, with the subjugation of the Despotate of Morea and the much smaller Empire of Trebizond, effectively extinguishing the final vestiges of Byzantine rule and expanding Ottoman dominion. If the fall of Constantinople was putting the fire out, certainly Morea and Trebizond was throwing a bucket of water over the ashes. We may put it that way. Now, this capture of Constantinople was not only a pivotal military victory, but it was significant for its cultural and historical significance, purportedly leading Mehmed to later boast at the ancient site of Troy that he had avenged the Trojans by conquering the Greeks. Following the successful seizure of Constantinople, Mehmed didn't feel like stopping, and he turned his attention to Serbia, which had been a vassal state of the Ottomans since the Battle of Kosovo in 1389. The connection between the Ottoman Empire and the Serbian Despotate was further complicated by familial ties, as one of Murad II's wives, namely Mara Brankovic, was Serbian. This connection was used by Mehmed II as a pretext to lay claims on the Serbian territories. By 1454, after Durad Brankovic, the ruler of Serbia, formed an alliance with Hungary and was inconsistent with his tribute payments, that's a big no-no, Mehmed saw an opportunity, a casus belli, to assert Ottoman power. This led to the Ottoman army marching from Edirne to Serbia, laying siege to key Serbian strongholds like Smederevo, and the vital mining center of Novoberdo. The conflict then escalated to a significant battle at Belgrade in 1456, where John Hunyadi led the defense during the siege. Despite the Ottomans' initial gains, the siege was ultimately unsuccessful, and peace prevailed until the fall of Belgrade in 1521 under Suleiman the Magnificent. What a name! Now, after the siege, the Serbian ruler Durad Brankovic briefly regained control over parts of Serbia. But after his death in 1456, the region quickly succumbed to internal strife and Ottoman influence. Mehmed's ambitions also extended to the Morea, the southern part of Greece, which bordered the southern Ottoman Balkans. The region was under control of the brothers Demetrios and Thomas Palaiologos, siblings of the last Byzantine emperor. The instability in Morea and the failure of the Palaiologos brothers to fulfill their obligations led to an Albanian-Greek revolt, which they attempted to suppress with the help of Ottoman forces. By 1460, Mehmed directly intervened by invading Morea, leading to the swift fall of the Byzantine stronghold of Mistra. The conquest of Morea was completed with the capture of Monemvasia and the subjugation of the Mani Peninsula, which subsequently came under Venetian control. The conquest of the Empire of Trebizond on the Black Sea coast was Mehmed's final act in eliminating the last remnants of Byzantine rule. Let's talk about it in a little detail. The strategic city had formed various alliances, including marital ties with the ruling dynasty of the Ak-Koyunlu, and promises of military support from neighboring Turkish beys and Georgian princes. Despite these alliances, the city fell to Mehmed in 1461, after a brief siege, marking the final nail in the coffin of the Byzantine legacy. Now, all in all, his conquest not only expanded the Ottoman Empire's territory, but also demonstrated his strategic skill and determination to strengthen Islamic rule. This, of course, earned him the title of the Conqueror. He earned this because of all the conquering he was doing. These military campaigns significantly altered the political landscape of southeastern Europe and the Near East, setting the stage for further Ottoman expansions under his successors. And now, we go to a character that may be a little bit familiar. Of course, you may already know that Mehmed went to war with Dracula of Romania. That's right. So, since the early 15th century, the Ottomans had been attempting to gain control over Wallachia, strategically situated as a buffer zone between their empire and the Kingdom of Hungary. Despite several attempts to install a pro-Ottoman ruler, each effort ended in failure. Wallachia was viewed as a critical state, and while Ottomans expected a yearly tribute, they typically refrained from deeper interference in its governance. This delicate balance was part of a broader struggle between the major Balkan powers of the time, the Ottomans and the Kingdom of Hungary, each vying to turn Wallachia into a vassal state. In an effort to finally secure Wallachia and prevent it with aligning from Hungary, the Ottomans released Vlad III Dracula and his brother Radu the Handsome, who had been held as political hostages since their youth. This move was calculated to install Vlad III, who had a legitimate claim to the Wallachian throne, as a favorable ruler to the Ottoman interests. However, Vlad's reign was quickly challenged by John Hunyadi, the regent governor of Hungary, who supported Vladislav II of the rival dynastic clan and restored him to power, forcing Vlad to flee to Moldavia and then finally to Hungary. Now, while he was there in Hungary, Vlad's deep understanding of the Ottoman politics and his fervent opposition to the Turks caught the attention of Hunyadi. Attempts were made to utilize Vlad's expertise against the Ottomans, but personal differences and, politics complicated these interactions. The year 1456 marked a turning point when the Ottomans laid siege to Belgrade, a critical frontier fortress. Hunyadi initiated a counterattack, and Vlad took his opportunity to reclaim his leadership in Wallachia by overthrowing Vladislav II. This maneuver was a clear indication of Vlad's determination to regain and maintain power, completely independent of external influences. Now, in 1459, some 3 years later, escalating tensions led Sultan Mehmed II to demand from Vlad III tributes, and he wanted back pay, specifically 10,000 ducats and 500 military recruits. Vlad not only refused the demands, but also executed the Ottoman envoys in a brutal display. Now, reportedly, they had sent a few envoys to tell Vlad to hand over the money and the recruits, to which he asked them, "Why are you wearing your hats inside? Be polite and take them off." Now, when they remarked that "this is a part of our religious dress, we do not take them off," he made sure that they would never have to take them off again by simply nailing the turbans to their heads and sending them on their way. That's right. Certainly knows how to assert his defiance against the Ottoman dominion. The conflict intensified when Mehmed dispatched Hamza Pasha to negotiate or potentially assassinate Vlad. However, Vlad anticipated these maneuvers and orchestrated an ambush that resulted in the massacre of the Ottoman contingent, and of course the invention of the kebab with the impalement of Hamza Pasha. By the winter of 1462, Vlad III's aggressive campaigns against the Ottomans reached a peak. He launched a scorched earth raid across the Danube into Bulgarian territories, employing guerrilla tactics and even disguising himself as an Ottoman to infiltrate the enemy camps. His brutal tactics were vividly described in his correspondence, claiming the lives of nearly 24,000 Turks and Bulgarians. Now Mehmed, redirecting his efforts from a siege in Corinth, launched a retaliatory invasion into Wallachia. Despite significant suffering and losses in a surprise night raid led by Vlad, which aimed to assassinate the Sultan himself, Mehmed's forces did eventually prevail. Vlad's staunch resistance, while militarily significant, failed to garner sustained local support, particularly from the boyars and his ally Stephen III of Moldavia, who ultimately turned against him. This internal dissent within Wallachia facilitated Mehmed's reinstatement of Radu as the ruler of Wallachia, effectively ending Vlad III's reign. Of course, if you want to know more about Vlad Tepes Dracula, you need only look on I think it's in the biography section, and you should find a full video on him. Anyway, following these tumultuous events, Vlad III took refuge in Hungary, but his fortunes waned, and he was soon imprisoned by Matthias Corvinus, based on the dubious charges of treason. This period marked the end of his direct influence, although his legacy as a fierce and implacable leader against the Ottomans endured in folklore and history. No doubt everybody has heard of him more than they've heard of Mehmed, at least in my parts of the world. Now, during the mid-15th century, following the death of Lazar Brankovic in 1458, a succession crisis triggered a civil war among his heirs. The internal strife provided an opportunity for the Ottoman Empire, which had long seen Serbia as a strategic asset, to solidify control over the region. The power vacuum and ensuing conflict culminated in the Ottoman conquest of Serbia in 1459–60. The next regional target was Bosnia, where Stefan Tomasevic ascended to the throne in July of 1461, following the death of his father, Stefan Thomas. Facing the Ottoman threat, Tomasevic sought alliances with Hungary and appealed to Pope Pius II for military support, anticipating the Ottoman invasion. The Ottoman advance into Bosnia was thusly swift, with Mehmed leading the forces that overran the kingdom by 1463. The capture of key strongholds like the royal city of Babovac and the subsequent fall of other fortresses marked the definitive Ottoman control over Bosnia. Tomasevic was captured and executed, and the region was absorbed as the westernmost province of the Ottoman Empire. Tensions escalated in the region when an Albanian slave fled from the Ottoman commander of Athens to the Venetian fortress of Coron, converting to Christianity and taking a significant amount of treasure. This incident in 1462 led to a series of military confrontations. Ottoman forces, commanded by Turhanoglu Omer Bey, nearly captured the Venetian stronghold of Lepanto. In retaliation, the Venetians, under leadership of the Captain General of the Sea, Alvis Loredan, fortified their own positions in Moravia, sparking further clashes with Ottoman forces. The conflict intensified as the Venetians attempted to secure their positions in Greece and Morea. They restored fortifications at the Isthmus of Corinth and faced continuous skirmishes with the Ottomans. Despite initial success, Venetian forces suffered a series of setbacks, culminating in a significant defeat at Acrocorinth, which forced them to retreat. Back in Bosnia, Hungarian forces under Matthias Corvinus managed to capture several key fortresses, including the capital of Jaxi, though this success was temporary, as Ottoman forces soon regained the upper hand. The maritime engagements also highlighted the strategic importance of the Dardanelles Strait, prompting Mehmed I to enhance naval defenses by constructing new shipyards and fortifications. Despite Venetian efforts to block the strait and disrupt Ottoman naval operations, their naval forces faced defeats, and the campaign gradually lost momentum. Well, either way, The protracted nature of the military campaign took a toll on both sides. By 1467, Venetian military commander Vetero Capello died after a series of unsuccessful military engagements. The death of Pope Pius II the previous year had already dampened the crusading spirit. The ongoing conflict, combined with the plague and other setbacks, gradually wore down the Venetian resolve and resources. During the latter half of the Middle Ages, after the decline of the Seljuk Sultanate, a plethora of Turkmen principalities, known collectively as the Anatolian Beyliks, sprouted all over Anatolia. Among these, the Karamanids, centered around what is now modern-day Karaman and Konya, emerged as a significant force. However, by the end of the 14th century, the Ottoman Empire began to assert its dominance over Anatolia, significantly diminishing the Karamanids' influence and prestige. The internal dynamics within the Karamanid dynasty during the reign of Ibrahim II were marked by familial strife over succession. Ishak of Karaman, designated as Ibrahim's heir and governor of Silifke, faced challenges from his younger brother, Pir Ahmet, who declared himself the Bey of Karaman in Konya. Following Ibrahim's death in a western city in 1464, the Beylik experienced a period of turmoil and contestation for the throne. With support from Uzun Hasan, Ishak initially managed to secure his position as leader. However, his reign was short-lived, as Pir Ahmet, seeking assistance from Sultan Mehmed II, promised territories to the Ottomans that Ishak had refused to relinquish. So, with Ottoman backing, Pir Ahmet overcame Ishak at the Battle of Dagpazari, forcing Ishak to retreat back to Silifke. Pir Ahmet's victory, though initially aligning him with Ottoman interests, soon led to regret as he tried to reclaim his ceded territories during an Ottoman Western campaign. His efforts, however, were in vain, as Sultan Mehmed swiftly recaptured Karaman and Konya in 1466, with Pir Ahmet narrowly escaping, managing to run away to the east. Subsequent Ottoman consolidation in the region was largely facilitated by Gedik Ahmet Pasha, who captured the coastal areas of the Karamanid realm. This conflict extended when Pir Ahmet and his brother Qasim sought refuge with Uzun Hasan, leading to further regional instability. In 1472, Uzun Hasan's forces, the Akoyunlu, disrupted Anatolia, setting the stage for the significant Battle of Otlukbeli in 1473, where Sultan Mehmed decisively defeated Uzun Hasan, curtailing Akoyunlu influence. Despite all the temporary successes, including a brief recapture of Karaman with Akoyunlu aid, Pir Ahmet's fortunes dwindled following the Ottoman victory near Beysahir. His plight worsened upon learning that his family had been moved to Istanbul, leading to his eventual retreat to Akoyunlu territory, where he received a fief in Bayburt and died in 1474. The unification of the Anatolian Beyliks under a single rule was initially achieved by Sultan Bayezid I over 50 years before Mehmed II's reign. However, this unification dissolved after the Battle of Ankara in 1402. Mehmed later took it upon himself to restore and expand Ottoman dominion over these Turkish states, setting the stage for future expansions, even into Europe. Now, his eastern policies were also heavily influenced by the Ak Koyunlu under Uzun Hasan, who had established strong connections with Christian entities, like that Empire of Trebizond, and of course the trading power of the Republic of Venice. They even formed alliances with the Karamanids. Viewing the Ak Koyunlu as a potential threat, he'd already dealt with them, and his engagements in eastern Anatolia were crucial for securing Ottoman interests and reducing the influence of the Turkoman tribal federations allied against him. In 1456, Peter III Aron, marking a shift in Moldavian politics, agreed to an Ottoman demand to pay an annual tribute of 2,000 gold ducats, thus becoming the first Moldavian ruler to formally accept Turkish terms and acknowledging a level of suzerainty. This move by Peter III aimed to secure Moldavia's southern borders from potential incursions. Well, following Peter III, his successor, Stephen the Great, took a starkly different approach. That being, he outright rejected anything Ottoman. This defiance marked the beginning of an era characterized by fierce conflicts, as the Ottomans did not appreciate his harsh denial of anything to do with them, and they wanted their money. Stephen aimed to extend his influence over Wallachia and supported his preferred candidates for the Wallachian throne, which fueled ongoing conflicts involving various Wallachian rulers and their backers from Hungary, the Ottomans, and Moldavia itself. The tussle led to an Ottoman punitive expedition under Hadim Pasha in 1475, aimed at curbing Stephen's interventions. This resulted in the Battle of Vaslui, where Stephen inflicted a crushing defeat on the Ottoman forces. Hailed as one of the most significant forces of Christian armies against Islam, with Ottoman casualties reportedly exceeding 40,000, according to Venetian and Polish sources. Mara Brankovic, the widow of Murad II, reportedly told a Venetian envoy that this was the worst defeat the Ottomans had ever suffered. Pope Sixtus IV recognized Stephen's contributions to the Christian cause by bestowing him the title Athleta Christi, the champion of Christ, acknowledging him as a staunch defender of the Christian faith. In response, Mehmed assembled a formidable army and invaded Moldavia in the June of 1476, while also orchestrating Crimean Tatar raids into the region to slowly try to chip away at Stephen's position. The conflict reached a crucial point when Stephen managed to draw the main Ottoman forces into a forest, which he then set on fire, causing significant Ottoman casualties. That's one way to do it. Well, despite initial successes in repelling the Ottoman assaults, the Moldavian forces ultimately faced defeat in a fiercely contested battle noted for its high casualties on both sides. The battlefield, known as Valea Alba or Akdere, which translates to the White Valley, reportedly derived its name from the bones of the dead left strewn across it, which is probably the most metal name for a place. Now, despite this setback, Stefan managed to retreat and regroup in the northwestern part of Moldavia, and even into the Polish kingdom, continuing to pose a significant challenge to Ottoman incursions. Although the Ottomans captured major Moldavian territories, including the capital Targoviste, they failed to take key strongholds, such as Suceava, Nempt, and Hotin. The Ottoman forces, hindered by ongoing Moldavian guerrilla attacks, supply shortages, and of course an outbreak of plague, eventually decided to retreat, and they left Moldavia. Simultaneously, Stephen also played a pivotal role in Wallachian politics by aiding his cousin Vlad in reclaiming the Wallachian throne for the third time in 1476. Following Vlad's death later that year, Stephen continued to influence Wallachian politics by supporting various candidates for the throne, maintaining his influence in the region for the years to come. Now, back to the situation on the Crimean Peninsula. In the early Middle Ages, it was inhabited by a group of Turkic peoples, known collectively as the Crimean Tatars. Following the disintegration of the Golden Horde under the impact of Timur's conquest in the 15th century, the Crimean Tatars established the independent Crimean Khanate. This new state was founded by Hassel I Giray, who claimed descent from the legendary Genghis Khan, but everybody can claim descent from him, on account of him being rather busy with his conquests. Anyway, the Crimean Tatars controlled the vast steppes, stretching from the Kuban River to the Dniester River. Now, despite their dominance over the steppes, they were unable to seize control of commercial towns along the Crimean coast, known as Khazaria. These towns have been under the rule of the Genoese since 1357. Now, how does this relate to the Ottomans? It's a long way away. Well, you see, the political landscape shifted significantly after the Ottoman conquest of Constantinople. The fall of this city disrupted the Genoese communication lines, and weakened their control over Khazaria as a result. Now, sensing an opportunity to slither in, the Crimean Tatars sought assistance from the Ottoman Empire to capture these towns. In response, the Ottomans, led by Gedik Ahmed Pasha, launched an invasion in 1475 that successfully brought Kaffa and other Genoese towns under Ottoman control. Following this conquest, the Ottomans solidified their influence over the Crimean Khanate. The Crimean Khan, Menli I Giray, was initially held captive by the Ottoman Sultan. He was later released on the condition that he accept Ottoman suzerainty, thereby allowing the Crimean Khans to rule as a tributary princes with significant autonomy, though the Ottomans maintained direct control over the southern coast of Crimea. The expansionist policies of the Ottomans continued under Gedik Ahmed Pasha, who led an audacious but ultimately short-lived invasion of Italy in 480, thus capturing the city of Otranto, but logistical challenges forced Ketlik Ahmed Pasha to withdraw most of his troops to Albania, leaving behind a small garrison. This event sparked more than a few fears throughout Italy, reminiscent of the fall of Constantinople, and prompted plans for evacuating Rome. Pope Sixtus IV called for a crusade in 1481, which received varying degrees of support from several Italian city-states, Hungary and France, though Venice remained neutral due to a costly peace treaty with the Ottomans signed in 1479. The defense of Otranto was organized by King Ferdinand of Naples, who appointed his son Alfonso II of Naples to lead the military campaign, supported by, guess who, Hungarian troops from King Matthias Corvinus. Thus, the siege of Otranto began on May 1st, 1481. The situation for the Ottomans worsened after the death of Mehmed on May 3rd, 1481, which led to succession disputes that hindered any potential reinforcements for Otranto. Thus, the situation fell apart. This whole thing was Mehmed's idea, and with Mehmed gone, well, what are we meant to do? Thus, the siege only lasted 2 days until he died. Talk about good luck for the Italians. They didn't even have to kill Mehmed, he just died on his own volition. Brilliant. Not for the Turks, but for the Italians. You know what I mean. Well, the Turkish garrison ultimately negotiated a withdrawal, allowing Otranto to be recaptured by papal forces later that year. So, very, very lucky. Now, after Mehmed captured Constantinople in 1453, and we're going to rewind it a little bit before we finish up, he entered the city through the Topkapi Gate, marking a significant historical transition. I'm sure you've seen the famous painting of him entering the city. Yes, that was the Topkapi Gate. One of his first actions was to go directly to the Hagia Sophia, which he then converted from an Orthodox cathedral into a mosque, signifying the Islamic rule over the city. You will notice that there are the 4 large towers with the minarets. Those were additions added on by the Ottomans. We never used to have them. Now, he facilitated this transformation by ordering an imam to recite the Muslim creed there, setting a clear religious imprint on his new conquest. He focused intensively on revitalizing Constantinople, initiating extensive building projects aimed at restoring the city's defenses and boosting its population. His efforts included the repair of the city walls, construction of a new citadel, a sophisticated hospital, cultural complexes, and facilities for the janissaries. And of course, they couldn't go without a fancy new gun foundry in Galata, and also a new palace, because why not? To repopulate the city and restore its economic and social life, Mehmed encouraged the return of Greek and Genoese residents who had fled by guaranteeing their safety and returning their properties. To further enhance the city's demographic structure, Mehmed issued a decree mandating resettlement of diverse populations from across his empire, including Muslims, Christians, and Jews. He implemented the millet system, which organized communities into religiously defined millets, giving each group a degree of administrative autonomy under their religious heads. This system allowed for religious coexistence and administrative efficiency within the empire. Well, with all these changes, by 1478, Constantinople was pretty different. Its transformation was evident, with a significant number of households, shops, and a vibrant population composed of Muslims, Christians, and Jews. His policies had transformed Constantinople from a predominantly Christian city into a cosmopolitan Islamic capital, with the Muslims, of course, forming the majority. Now, the long-term impact of his policies was profound, shaping Istanbul's social and demographic character well into the future. Even by the mid-16th century, the Greek population in the city had largely been replaced, indicating a significant demographic shift. Though, throughout Mehmed's reign and beyond, the city experienced various challenges, including plagues and social shifts, but his foundational policies established Istanbul as a crucial imperial capital. Esteeming figures like Achilles and Alexander the Great, Mehmed was known for his scholarly pursuits and could converse knowledgeably about the Christian religion. Fluent in multiple languages including Turkish, Serbian, Arabic, Persian, Greek, and Latin, his reign marked a significant period of cultural and scholarly flourishing in the Ottoman Empire. He also frequently convened discussions with the ulama, that's the learned Muslim teachers, to deliberate on theological matters, reflecting his engagement with intellectual debates. Under his rule, disciplines such as mathematics, astronomy, and theology reached brand new heights, albeit within the Ottoman context. His court also attracted humanists and intellectuals, like Siracchio di Pizzicoli of Ancona and Benedetto Dei of Florence, and also Michael Critobulus of Imbrus, who described Mehmed as a Philhellene because of his respect and efforts to preserve Greek antiquities, including the Parthenon. Well, aside from his intellectual interests, Mehmed was also a poet who wrote under the pseudonym Avni, contributing to the rich tradition of diwan poetry. Well, controversially, there is some historical account that suggests that Mehmed had a certain predilection for young men, sparing some from execution and adding them to his personal little collection if they caught his eye. This is not proven, but there are some historical accounts that do suggest it. Perhaps next time you meet a Turkish person, you can ask them, or perhaps it's best just not to mention it at all. Well, as we've said, Mehmed's reign came to that very abrupt end, which made the Italians all breathe a sigh of relief in 1481. And at this time he was preparing for new campaigns, possibly aiming to conquer Rhodes, go down to more parts in southern Italy, and even Egypt to claim the caliphate. Well, he didn't get the chance, because he fell ill and died at the age of 49 in Maltepe, Istanbul, under circumstances that some suspect involved poisoning, potentially orchestrated by his son and successor Bayezid. His death, of course, was met with celebrations in Europe, where he was often viewed as a formidable and fearsome ruler. Mehmed significantly expanded the Ottoman Empire, incorporating Constantinople, various Anatolian territories, and much of the Balkans. And yes, his legal reforms predate those of Suleiman the Magnificent, contributing to the image of an autocratic yet transformative sultan. Today, his legacy persists in various forms, including the Fatih Sultan Mehmet Bridge in Istanbul, and his depictions on Turkish currency. Yeah, he's on the notes. His rule remains a pivotal chapter in the history of both the Ottoman Empire and the broader region. But to us from the Anglosphere, if indeed you are like me, an Anglosphere person of European descent or indeed European heritage, then I suppose he may seem like a villain of the story. Regardless of all the legal reforms, regardless of how many languages and his little collection of young men reportedly, he will always be the one who broke down the walls of Constantinople and left us in this horrible mess that we find ourselves in. But, as they say, bless the mess. Well, thank you very much for listening to this rather long and extensive view on Mehmed II. And thank you for being patient as I went off topic talking about the Italian campaigns for so long, but indeed they are relevant in terms of the general context of the world after the fall of Constantinople, and how that kicked off the Ottomans in the early days. I suppose the biography of Mehmed II is essentially the short history of those first formative years of the wider Ottoman Empire. So, I will first thank my top-tier Patreon subscribers, that is Stark Factory, JC, Jeffrey, and Susan, 4 complete Chads. Thank you very much for supporting the channel. If you would like to do the same, it's quite easy. You just follow that link to the Patreon, but just enjoy the videos. It's all good. I wish you all the best of luck in what you do. Have a good day, and I will see you tomorrow. Goodbye for now, and good night.